Good morning, good afternoon, good evening to a few of you. Welcome to today's community briefing. It's the 16th of June in the year 2022, and we are glad you are here. Our guest is Selina Thomas, and she is a specialist in human resources. She has her own company, and she is in the Santa Clarita area, and also has a official capacity within Santa Clarita. She's going to tell us all about that. So she'll be joining us momentarily. My name is Gregory Sneed. The name of my company is Lifesaver Financial Services, where I help my clients keep more of the money they make. I offer life insurance services, financial coaching, and financial literacy education training. So if you want to feel better about your money, you'll feel better about your life, reach out and give me a call or send a message or an email. Now, it's my pleasure to welcome to the virtual stage the queen of our community briefing, Miss Crystal Mitchell.
Hey everyone, glad to be here. Thank you. There, those of you out there tuning into our stream on Facebook. Glad to have you today, guys. This week and this month, we're celebrating Juneteenth. I guess that's the true date for those folks in Texas when they achieved their freedom. Somehow or another, the message didn't get to them when everybody else got the message. So we're celebrating Juneteenth. Got my Juneteenth Black American Freedom shirt on. Ordered it last week. Came in time. So we want to thank you guys all for coming out to the community briefing. My name is Crystal Mitchell. I am the co-director of Recycling Black Dollars, as well as my own business, which I provide mentorship, coaching, and support for our black community, our small black business community, and as well as our community, both adults and youth. We are excited to have brought this platform to you because it's not just our platform, it's everyone's platform. It is our space where we can speak our truths and know and get to know who our leaders and stakeholders are in our community. And that's what's been missing in our community, is a place where we feel comfortable to talk about what's important to us and how we grow and how we achieve success in our businesses and for our family. So welcome. Please put your information in the chat room. This is also a networking platform. I want you guys to support each other. That's what we're supposed to do, especially in the name of Recycling Black Dollars. This platform is co-sponsored and powered by Recycling Black Dollars and the Black Business Association. We also have a host of other corporate sponsors, Southern California Edison's, SoCal Gas, and our newest sponsor is Wells Fargo. So we want to thank them for their support. We want to continue to grow, so we need you guys to help us grow by making sure you send this broadcast out to everyone you know. The information here is just priceless, and we want to continue to grow. And if there's anyone that you guys feel you'd like to see as a guest on the show, reach out to myself or Mr. Stephen Turner, who is he does the producing for the show and outreach to all of our guests. So we want to thank you for joining us. And our guest today, she's absolutely phenomenal. She has been a guest on the Business Zone, and I fell in love with her. And again, guys, we got black women just coming out of everywhere running for office, because black women gonna make a difference in this world. And so they are standing up and rising up to their calling to make sure that happens. So thank you guys. Have a fantastic team. You've already met Greg. You already have met me. Mr. Steven will come in on the end, and our other partner and host is Miss Robin Billups. She's right now over at the City of Hope getting treatment, but she's doing fabulous, and so she sends her blessings and her love as well. And so, fantastic team. Couldn't do this without each other, any of us, and so we want to thank you guys. So with that, I am going to turn it back over to Greg. I want to welcome all of you that are here, our people who come every week, and then a few new ones. Hey, we got Lula Washington in the house. They're doing a Juneteenth event this this weekend. So she'll tell us that in a little. We'll let you come in at the very end and let us know what Lula's doing. There's so many Juneteenth events going on, Lamert Park. So you want to celebrate? We want to celebrate this weekend. All righty, Greg, back to you.
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, growing up in New York, I knew nothing about Juneteenth. Never heard about it, and it wasn't until I moved to Los Angeles some years ago and started interacting with people. A lot of them from the Texas. I think that was a big thing from Texas and Oklahoma area. So now that it's been recognized and a holiday, and everyone knows what Juneteenth is, and even we're starting to get commercial production of merchandise and shirts and was there a cereal? Is there a Juneteenth cereal?
There was a cereal. Walmart did something crazy, and folks jumped all over them with everything they had. Yeah, they snatched that off the air like quick and fast in a hurry because they were making a mockery out of us. We will not allow that to happen.
You already wrote our backs commercial.
Right, exactly. Not gonna happen. So yes, we had everything going on. So everybody's on board, which I mean, yeah. At least they're acknowledging that we do exist and that we had a major part in the development of this country.
Yes.
And as one of my sister's co-workers, she's a commissioner for the county of LA for property tax assessing. One of the ladies, she was talking about Juneteenth last year, and she goes, she was asking what was it about because she didn't know, right? So she says, well, it was when, the people in Texas found out that they were free. She goes, they didn't tell them before? Oh, my God, how horrible is that?
That's so funny.
Juneteenth humor. All right, Greg.
All right. So today our guest is Selina Thomas, and you'll notice she's got a bunch of initials behind her or next to her name. So PHR, which is a professional human resource certification, and she's got SHRM. So she'll tell us what that is. It sounds like SHRM, right? But that's not SHRM.
Yes, that's correct.
And she owns a company, 6 Degrees HR Consulting. She is the CEO and founder. And she has a little over 15 years of human resource experience. Today, usually sometime I go from the bottom to the top and top to the bottom. So today's going to be top to bottom, and she'll fill in some of the bottom part of it. Let's see. So 6 Degrees HR Consulting. She's in business because every business needs someone to manage hiring, training, salaries, and employee relations. Whether you sell products or services, 6 Degrees HR Consulting can help your company with the HR tasks. This way you can maximize performance, and she will give some information later where you can schedule a consultation. Previously, she was with Glendale Surgery Outpatient Surgery Center, and she was a human resources coordinator. She's worked with the Home Health Care Service as in staffing and patient relations. Also, the Department of Corrections as a benefit specialist. I don't see where she went to school. I don't see where she grew up, where she went to high school. So she'll share that with us, all that information with us. And for those of you who know that Santa Clarita is known for other things than the amusement park. So she'll be sharing that with us and the importance of Santa Clarita and the growth of the city. So without further delay, please welcome to our virtual stage, Miss Selina Thomas.
Thank you. Hi, Greg. Hi, Crystal. Hi, everybody. It's so nice to see you again. Thank you for that introduction. And there's so much in a bio, and ultimately our bios are always evolving. And so I started my company literally out of a Starbucks right here in Santa Clarita in 2014, and it grew. And you read my resume in the sense that I worked for many people. And I think business owners can relate to that moment and that epiphany when they realize that they're working for someone else and their dreams and their goals, and it's time to work for my own. And so I am a single mom of 3 girls. I live here in Santa Clarita. Came here to start not just my new life after a divorce, but also root myself in a community that could be a place where my girls thrive, but also I could start a business. And so Santa Clarita is fertile soil, if you will, for small businesses. So it was very easy for my company to grow from that Starbucks to a building right off of Magic Mountain Parkway. So the roller coasters are behind me. And so I started my company in 2014, well before COVID. And thank God I had learned how to serve small businesses, because when the crisis happened in 2020, I had already established myself as a go-to person, not just for the infrastructure of a company, but for being a strategic partner. And that's when I was asked by many of my small businesses to run for city council here, to be a small business voice on our council. This is me not knowing anything. I'm not a politician, didn't know the landscape in the sense that there had never been an African American city council person. And so obviously that's a metric that I don't want people to vote on specifically, but I definitely understood the magnitude of that gesture once I got into my candidacy. So I am now a trademark company set to franchise. And also, right before COVID, I had done a pre-audition for Shark Tank to franchise 6 Degrees nationally. Because as you mentioned, Greg, everyone needs HR. And the small business community really makes up our economy. And so 6 Degrees being nationally franchised made perfect sense to me. But then the crisis hit, production shut down. So we were all shuttered. And I had to do videos like this to keep my clients informed of what was the latest on the PPP, what was the latest on unemployment, phase one, phase two. Remember, when this started, it was 15 days and we'll flatten the curve and we'll all get back to work. And, you know, that 15 days turned into 15 months. And now we're all, you know, pivoting to recover. And so much has happened in the year that I had announced my candidacy, which was Juneteenth last year. It was apropos for me to announce on a day that we were all finally acknowledged, and that moment was stamped as a federal holiday. And so I announced my candidacy, and now we're in the middle of a campaign that will come to fruition on November 8th. So I am on the midterm ballot here as a businesswoman, as an independent. So what that means is that I have a no party preference in a nonpartisan race, which makes perfect sense, right? Because you have to work in a bipartisan way. And I think our candidacy, my candidacy, has brought a lot of attention to really politics at the city level, at which for most people, that's where things impact them the quickest. Anything happens on the federal, it trickles down. But if it happens on the city level, it is going to be impactful right away. So I am honored to be chosen to represent not just our community, but the business community. There's many attributes that I have that lend to this time in our community's awareness. We are having our second Juneteenth event in our city's history. And to your point earlier, there's people starting to commercialize and monetize what Juneteenth means. But we as a community have known what it's meant. And so for us to be able to share that in a positive way is so important. Shortly after that, I'll be in our 4th of July parade with my family. And, you know, it's starting to grow. So since I saw you last, Crystal, we've had 4 fundraisers. We've raised over $40,000 for my candidacy, which levels the playing field, which that's all we ever want, is to level the playing field in any situation from business to politics. And now I'm a candidate that is really being taken seriously in the opportunity to serve as a businesswoman, as an independent, and as an proud African American woman. So I'm so happy to be here, happy to meet everybody. And so to your question about my background, and I have a master's in HR, and I have the SHRM-CP is my national credentials. So a lot of companies moved out of California. If you remember, there was an exodus. It's very hard to do business here. And so I got a national certification so that those companies could still be under the umbrella of 6 Degrees for services. And so I switched from being a social worker because that was a difficult thing for my personality to handle the kind of the underbelly of society. And so I still wanted to serve people. So the other way I could do that was to um, go into human resources and still work with people in a positive way. So if anybody has questions or comments, I'm happy to share. Feel free to ask.
Can you fill us in on what a SHRM means?
Yes. So PHR is a professional human resources. SHRM is the governing body. So you had it correct for that certification nationally. So I work nationally. I'm also somebody that is an infrastructure specialist. So many people come to me to write policy. When legislation passes and we have to interpret what that means for the employer, I'm the one that would write that policy, not just for my clients, but for best practices. And so I am also a minority business enterprise, and I am doing as many on this panel procurement opportunities so that I can work with municipalities, with institutions like College of the Canyons as an industry expert. So all of that combined and those letters mean constant engagement with what's happening at the federal and state level so that that can be translated to the business owner and to their employees.
Cool. So, SHRM is the Society for Human Resources Management, and it was formerly the American Society of Personnel Administration.
Yes.
So you remember when let's see, it used to be the personnel department, then that turned into human resources,
Yes.
and so everything now changes and evolves in terms of naming.
Yes.
So thank you for that. Now you also mentioned you have your master's. So where did you go to school? Where did you get your master's from? Where was your
Yes.
undergrad?
Yes. University of Laverne. I went to Citrus College first. I was that girl that was like, I have to pay my way. So I started at junior college and then I made my way up and got my master's and bachelor's from both and at that same institution. And then from there, I started to study for my license. I wanted to be a real practitioner that was somebody that could not just take what and apply what I learned and wrote in my thesis. My thesis title was how to retain employees from the top down and why do people leave companies. And people leave companies not because of the money. And this was in 2008, and the same stands true today. It's how they're treated. And so even more so now, employees are really leveraged with how they want to work and in the conditions that they work in. And COVID allowed people to work from home. So our workforce issues now are getting people to come back in person. And we constantly have a surge or a new variant that allows them under ADA to say, I'm not coming in. And so we have to, as employers, work with them on how we can get them to come back in person, but also make the conditions that they are in remotely advantageous to the business. And so there's a lot of strategic partnership that I have to do with the current workforce climate. And so these are all things that as a practitioner, you can't learn from a book. You actually have to get into the field and apply what's happening in real life in a tangible way. So that practice has allowed me to translate those skills into working with the community. And so it's a skill set that I've developed with working with many, many companies here and nationally. And my recent trip to France, I actually have a client in Bordeaux, France. And so 6 Degrees started in Starbucks, Santa Clarita, but 8 years later, and I took my daughter with me to just kind of have a full circle moment with her to my client who's also headquartered, they're a wine company. They're headquartered in Bordeaux, France. She had her first glass of champagne there. I set the bar very high. I let her know that, be mindful. This is $2 chuck when you get back. That you are drinking vintage champagne in Bordeaux for a company that I started in Santa Clarita in 2014. So let's just take that in. And so we expanded in so many ways because HR for every company and for different reasons is impactful. And so the client is actually based in Van Nuys, but they're headquartered and their vineyard is in Bordeaux. And so when we were in France, they said, we're going to put you on the super train and we'd love to have you come out. And we toasted to getting through COVID. Wine companies, believe it or not, were considered essential industries. I wonder why. So they remained open and they flourished and they thrived. And some companies and some industries did so because of the nature of what they do and how they were able to adjust. And so this client was certainly profitable in COVID as much as 6 Degrees was as well.
Yeah, imagine going through the pandemic and COVID without wine and
without
liquor
wine
or beer. Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So
I had to
are
write
you
policies based on that.
on beer and wine and
Well, based on being essential.
Oh, okay.
And so so from that we got the list, right? It came out and everybody's looking for themselves and figuring out how to then accommodate their employees as an essential industry. And so these are the types of things as a true practitioner that I'm engaged in every single day.
We ask all of our guests, so where did you grow up? Are you a native of California?
I am not. So my father was in the Air Force. He met and married my mom in the Philippines. So I am Filipino and African American. My father was a Air Force air traffic controller. So he was stationed in Manila, and he saw my mom in a GI bar and was like, "They don't look like that in Compton. I got to figure out how to talk to this woman." So he rode the bus for 6 months to learn how to speak Tagalog. And then he approached her and said, "Kumusta ka na ate? Maganda na ani," which means, "You're very beautiful and how are you?" And so I grew up military. I grew up all over the world, all over the country, because my father was stationed everywhere. And so I never root myself in one place, although Santa Clarita is my hometown now. I had the opportunity to live all over the country, New York, New Mexico, Idaho, everywhere he was stationed. Obviously, we were in tow. And it certainly helped me develop my people skills and learning how to see the world in a more broad way. And that, you can create a foundation, but you need to get into the world, which is why Crystal wants to travel. And, once you get a taste of that, you get out and I encourage my daughters to do that, which is why I took my daughter Madison, and I have 2 elite athlete daughters. So I have 3 total, and 2 of them were elite athletes and traveled the country. So I'm from everywhere, but I am Filipino and African American. So I've had a lot of opportunity to work with our Filipino community here in Santa Clarita, who are actually 38% of the Asian vote. So I'm constantly engaged with everyone. So I'll be at our Juneteenth event on Saturday. I will be on our 4th of July parade, and then I will be at the ribbon cutting for a Filipino superstore here. And so my candidacy embodies the community. And so I think it served me to have been a military child.
Crystal, you have to introduce her to Richard Pele, who's now with the AAPI, right? Is that the
Oh
name
yeah,
of it?
right.
Yeah,
Nap. He should
Asian
be
Pacific.
popping in shortly. There's a couple of people who already reached out to me and told me they were coming in. So yes, I will introduce her to Richard Palais. Richard Palais, NAP. I guess that's what they're called, the National Asian American Pacific.
I think it's Asian American
Islanders,
Pacific Islander,
Pacific Islanders.
AAPI,
Yeah,
something like that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's running that program. He's the only black man over there.
I'm the only Black woman here in Santa Clarita. So we just recently had a Filipino, Asian Pacific Islanders community event at our community center, where our Filipino community got to share how to make lumpia, how to make adobo, and some kind of quick language lessons. And it was really fun. And a lot of the Filipino community have embraced me, and it's always like, "Oh, you're Pinay." That's how that means, a Filipino woman. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
You spend any time in Minot, North
No,
Dakota?
Manila. Oh, not no, no.
Okay,
I
there's a pretty big Air Force facility up in North
My father
Dakota.
was stationed there. He
Okay.
was stationed there briefly, but I stayed with my lolo and my lola, my grandma, grandpa, during that segment because it was too cold. He's like, "I don't think you're gonna like it here," and I'm only stationed here for 9 months, and so he allowed us to stay with our grandma, grandpa.
A friend
Yeah.
of mine was stationed there for about, well, actually, I've had a couple friends stationed up there, but one was there actually further up by the where the missile base, and he said
Hmm.
one time it got to 75 below.
It's scary cold.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
this
yeah.
was this was a gift from my father, not to make us go to elementary school on the base in that place. So, as much as he could and my family could create just you know, a long periods of time where we're stationed, he did so. But it really serves me now because now I have the travel bug and I understand, his sentiment of get into the world and yes, create your foundation, but you need to get into the world. And so recently back from France, the perspective of, um, of people in Europe, of us and what we're doing here and our culture and our climate of how we treat each other was really profound. I met a man on a French street. He was outside of a park, which I couldn't see was a park. He was smoking a cigarette and he heard me speaking to my daughter. He goes, "Oh, you're American." I said, "Oh, you are too." And he says, "I'm here. I live here now. My daughter lives here, and I'm a grandpa to my grandchildren. They're in the park, which you can't see." And I said, "Why is it covered with foliage?" He said, "Because we treat our children here like national treasures,
Mm.
physically and emotionally." And that was so profound for me to hear him say that because within 2 weeks when I returned was the school shooting in um, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
And he had no problem being an expatriate um, to be able to support his daughter and his grandkids in in the foundational years of their lives in a safe place. And he found the safest place for him to do that was abroad. And that spoke volumes about where we are and what we need to be doing. And this is somebody that ultimately was also in the military. He was, a patriot by his own description, but felt the need to move because of the state of our country. And so I told him a little of my story, and he said he was going to follow me. And he goes, "Good for you for serving." I had done my piece, and I was ready to just kind of go live a peaceful life. But to be someone that served and say that I have to leave this country to live a peaceful life, it really struck me. And of course, he was one of the first people I thought of when I saw the shooting. Full disclosure, um, here in Santa Clarita, um, and my daughter just graduated. We had a school shooting here in 2019, and a student made a ghost gun. And if anybody knows what that is where you buy the parts and then you build it with a schematic. And so it's not on anyone's radar, right? And what was tragic about that was that one, he killed um, two of my daughter's classmates, but he also killed himself on his
Mm.
16th birthday. And what was going on with this kid that he felt the need to do that way under the radar until that day. And so this is not that it just a lot of people feel like, oh, this is far away from me. This just happened to me. I was pulling up in front of the school when the shooting occurred, and then of course pulled out. It was 2 blocks from this shooting.
Wow.
And so it resonates with me whenever I see that in a real way. And it's really something that we have to address as a community. And we're, you know, the gun issue in and of itself is a huge issue in this campaign because of every day a headline, whether it's a school shooting, whether it's a mass shooting, whether it's right a shooting in a sanctuary, and there is no sanctuary anymore. If you can't go to the store, you can't go to school, you can't go to church. It's really tragic, and so I think about that man in France all the time, and understand. And my father also moved out of this country and died in another country as an educator and had been in the Air Force. And so he passed away in Guatemala. He retired as superintendent and moved there to create educational infrastructure. But people are leaving this country to do that in peace and with a giving heart, but just can't do it here. And
Yeah.
so it's difficult to see that.
Awesome.
One last question, and it's over to you, Crystal.
Mm-hmm.
So we ask a lot of our HR people, what are your thoughts on the Prop 22? The independent contractor and the whole thing
Big
with,
issue.
yeah, and also with companies looking to, um, uh, quote unquote, keep benefits down by having people only at 30 hours versus 40 hours, and
Per
so
diem.
how
Yeah.
are you counseling companies on that, and thoughts on the on the Prop
Yeah.
22. I was opposed to it, but
Well, here's the issue. It always comes back to the money, right? If people aren't paying their taxes, or they squeezed. So if you look at the checklist that allows you to be an independent, right? Each year it got longer in the sense that you had to meet certain criteria, from control to how many hours worked, if use of equipment, even down to, if I use the stapler, then I've inadvertently created a employer employee relationship, because people were not paying their taxes as independents. And then when they would leave the company, or the contract was expired, they'd still file unemployment. Unemployment was allowed to reclassify them. So it came down to people paying their taxes. And so for the employer who's trying to outsource everything right now because of the expense of it, um, it's a hot button issue. It's, how do we get things done with reduced workforce, with someone who I can't call an employee? It's difficult for independents to truly be independence without meeting all of the criteria, from, do you have a brick and mortar? Do you have an EIN? Do you have a website? Are you truly independent? So people are really trying to live in the gray area, but ultimately it comes down to the money. It comes down to, where are we going to get these taxes from? And once they're reclassified as employees, not only does that independent who operate as independent get unemployment, but the employer gets penalties and fines, and ultimately has to restructure their company. So it extends into a lot of issues for companies and people. So if you're truly an independent, you would have all of those things.
True that. True that.
Yeah.
Selena, in the state of California, and for all most of everyone on this call is small business owners. The state of California is actually an employer state, and so they get first acknowledgement on what's going on, especially if there's any grievances at the company. Can you speak to that? Because there's a number of our small businesses that as solopreneurs, but we'll be hiring, and that's what we're trying to encourage them, is to increase their revenues. You really do need employees. So can you talk to that, on why it's so important to understand the HR laws in the state of California, and how they supersede the state
Yes.
laws here, and why you really should have an HR consultant, and
Yes.
maybe be a
Yes.
member of SHRM, because that's what I always
Yes.
use for SHRM in
Yes.
order to address all issues.
Yes. So, as I think I mentioned earlier, a lot of people left California, employers, because it's so difficult to do business, but it's also difficult, more difficult than most, to be an employer. So it really comes down to this: you don't know what you don't know. And so if you're Google gassing your HR, you're already behind the eight ball. So if you don't have a true practitioner that is required by their credentials to not only have continued CEUs and be apprised of how that applies to you in policies and infrastructure, but you also need to have, especially small business owners that are family owned, you need to have a neutral party that's not only a practitioner, but also that neutral entity that is coming from a place of, this is best practice. Forget that your mother-in-law, father-in-law, and this is your son-in-law, right? And we're giving grace, and we're having all these employee issues because of nepotism and favoritism. You just want to have true infrastructure. Any company that starts, they want to grow. And so don't wait, don't put the cart before the horse. You want to have that infrastructure coming in. You want them to only know it that way. I introduce a lot of handbooks after the fact. Now think about that. The seven people that started are going, well, what, because we're not, the handbook is your Bible of your company. It's got all of the best practices, but your company culture is there, your policies. And so if they don't have a guidance in what your company does, what the expectations are, they're kind of flying by the seat of their pants. In an employee friendly state, if that person is let go, the first thing that an administrative law judge is asking me for in a hearing, can we have the company handbook, so that I know what this employee had to go by in order to understand why we're here today. And so you can imagine that all the color in their face is gone when they don't have a handbook to deliver. So a lot of companies call me in a crisis and trying to keep up and catch up with an action against them, whether that's a wrongful termination, whether that's an employee action in litigation with EDD or workers' comp. And so it's essential that if you are going to operate, and the minute that you hire someone, you should be handing them infrastructure. That's an offer letter, that's a handbook, that's their job description, that's all the policies that are related to your company and some to your industry. Because remember, we have companies separate from being regulated by EDD, workers' comp. You might have an industry specific issue that, like in a medical environment, that you must align with and comply with. So doing this without infrastructure, you're really putting yourself behind the 8 ball. So a practitioner is responsible for making sure I meet you where you're at. So when I do a consultation, I'm meeting the client where they're at. I'm the first thing I'm asking for, like a judge would, is where's your handbook? Let's see what you have. Let's see. And I've had people hand me typewritten handbooks that were written on a typewriter, and when I was in high school, and I'm like, oh boy, right? Let's just pretend this doesn't exist, because it doesn't. In best practice, it's 1 to 2 years that you're updating your handbook. So if you're handing me something from 1988, these employees do not have a handbook right now. So you're operating without infrastructure. So if I were to just really kind of drive a point home that I do often with employers, is have infrastructure. And what does infrastructure look like? It is your handbook, it's your policies, it's their onboarding letter, how they're classified, right? That goes back to your question, Gregory, about are they an employee, exempt, non-exempt? Are they, right? They're not, a independent should have an independent contract agreement with all the bells and whistles related to an independent contractor, and then an employee should have an employee file. So those are the types of things that I'm engaged with new companies and companies that maybe have come out of a litigation, and the corrective action from that entity is you must have HR. To apply for EPLI insurance, which is employer liability insurance, there's a line item 12 on the application that says who does your HR and what is their credentials. So often I'm giving my license number to my clients that are smart enough to have EPLI, because even the best laid plans, even with infrastructure, we have people that will litigate against your company. EPLI insurance will be a buffer to some degree, not on workers' comp, not on wage and hour, but wrongful termination, discrimination, things like that, your EPLI would cover. So these are all things that are essential for an employer.
And I would imagine, especially since we're coming through COVID and they're still confusing COVID protocols, as well as the remote working, and you see things like Elon Musk and a number of other corporations demanding that their employees come back to work,
Yes.
irregardless
And
of the fact that we're.
ADA says that if they're COVID, if they have a fear of COVID, have contracted COVID, or are vulnerable to COVID, under ADA, they can request an accommodation and remain home. And a lot of employers don't understand that right there supersedes any demand that you would have of them to return in person. So making that demand creates exposure for you, because now you've inadvertently violated American Disabilities Act. If people look up ADA, they will see that in 2021, fear of COVID, right, vulnerability to COVID was placed under ADA. So this is why it's important to have a practitioner, because you don't know what you don't know. And who would know that? A practitioner that is certified nationally and, of course, specifically in California. It's very important.
Are there some additional challenges when the employees are also family members? Do you run into that?
Oh, so I have a book of business in Santa Clarita. Thank you for asking that. That's 67. So most of them are family-owned companies. And then nationally, I have 125. And most of my family-owned businesses, some of the cautionary tales that they've heard or why they've come to me was behind nepotism, favoritism. We've had some financial malfeasance that has occurred for some companies. That how do I address something like that with a family member, right? You're distancing yourself. You have to do all the things that would allow your insurance company to recoup that. Well, one of the things the insurance company says, if you want to recoup a financial malfeasance, is do you have a head on a plate? Did someone get terminated by this? Who was it? How do you say, oh, it was my nephew? So a practitioner, a neutral party, would be the one that would investigate and come up with a determination about whether it was founded, inconclusive, or unfounded, and provide that information to the insurance company. Now the father-in-law is not doing it, now the wife is not doing it. They're saying our outside consultant did an investigation, best practice, and these are the conclusions. So those types of dynamics have happened in my practice here. And of course, the patriarch or the matriarch that started the company, the last thing they want to do is be involved in a termination of a family member, or even more, a financial investigation that leads to criminal charges. And that has happened many times. I can tell you that.
Office manager, but she's my spouse.
See? So you're gonna say, talk to Selina. I'm not involved. That's what you're gonna say. And it came from her. And so a lot of people do use a neutral party just for that, to say, this didn't come from me. This came from our consultant, our outside consultant. No skin in the game. I don't know the people or the politics. I just know what's in front of me. And that in and of itself provides them some distance to very difficult decisions. Even when we changed organizations from the COVID crisis, the reorganization or the restructure of a company came from the consultant.
Awesome.
If that makes sense.
Anyone have any questions? We got quite a few employers here on the line. I work in the accounting world, and in my corporate world, because I did payroll, I always worked alongside of HR, and in some cases, I had to provide some of that information as well. So even though that they're small businesses or micro-owned businesses, they still do need to have, as you said, their handbook, and you're suggesting that they upgrade every 2 years, or
best practice says that because look at all the mandates that change, right? January 1, I'm always aware what's in the pipeline legislatively in June that is going. I mean, we're talking about assembly bills, we're talking about propositions that immediately impact what an employer is required to do. And so if you look back 5 years ago, the mandatory sick pay, if you look back even further, you're even what from the federal level, what employers have to do in terms of recognizing protected classes and allowing same-sex couples to now have benefits because they are protected and they're deemed, somebody that you cannot discriminate against because of their current marital status. So those are all those types of things that you could do inadvertently, not knowing that you have an obligation under the law, a proposition, or a mandate.
Okay, back to you, Greg. I think there's a question.
Yes. So we have a question. Switching gears. So, what are the top 2 or 3 platforms for your city council candidacy?
Yes, thank you. And so the top one is really what was the antithesis of my candidacy, was small business recovery. Small business recovery. If you remember any crisis that we've ever had, the impact is immediate, but the recovery is long lasting. So when I was an intern for Nate Holden, many people on this panel probably know who he is. He had a district that was greatly impacted by the riots, and so the empowerment zone money really funded and that recovery for 10 years. So in Santa Clarita, the crisis for everyone was the COVID impact. And so having had that experience in that era to now, understanding that this crisis that took 2 years will take 6 years for a small business owner to recover from. And so that is my top priority. And of course, coming from that space, I know innately what the issues are, from the workforce issues I talked about to what it's like to readjust as a company, because maybe the impact from COVID, think about some industries that will never recover. We had a huge impact of travel and restaurant and salons. They lost so much because they had to work underground or they couldn't work at all. They weren't essential. So that's the top priority. And the other one for me specifically, because of who I am, is community engagement. We have a more diverse community than when I moved here. The last cycle that the incumbents ran in 2018, the demographics have shifted tremendously. It was 70% white In 2022 now, it is 50%. So you have natural attrition, you have people that have passed away, older voters, but you also have a more diverse community that has moved here. And so the priority for me in that regard is that engagement and having someone that looks like half of this community at that seat. When you come and you spend $200,000, you earn $200,000 and you're spending $900,000 on a property, right? You want someone that looks like you, that recognizes what it's like to be in the minority in a community. You want someone that looks like that at the seat, not just for that metric, but for the other reasons. I've raised my kids here. I've built a business. I'm a homeowner, and I've saved businesses. So to Crystal's point, the last time we spoke, I'm a true stakeholder here, and I have the credibility for what I've built here, not just raising my kids who have been exceptional in what they do academically and athletically, but I'm really a reflection of what's possible here. I think people want to see that. And that credibility at that seat is what I would look for as a constituent. And so those are the top two priorities. And then from there, we all have the same issues, right? What this housing, the gas, there's so many things. Obviously, those are federal issues, they're national issues, but being an advocate that this is impactful, is there something that we can do on a grant level? Is there some ordinance that we can create on rent control here, because people are taking advantage of renters because they can't afford to buy? I mean, those are real issues that are happening here, that people that have lived here as renters have lived here, raised their families, and maybe for whatever reason can't buy, but now they're being squeezed out because the rent is quadruple because
wow.
Absolutely. A house that was $3,000 a month, right? Same square footage, and that you could rent, long term, people are asking for 4,500, and they're asking for 6 months up front. I mean, they've just gone crazy. It's just like the Wild Wild West because they can. And so just having someone to speak to that. I was a renter before I was an owner, but for the grace of God goes me, I could certainly have that issue and be someone that makes six figures and can't afford to live here. That's a problem. And so those are housing affordability. We are the third safest community rated nationally. And so my support to law enforcement is also a priority. There were 4 officers that were behind me at the time of the school shooting that were off duty, and they ran in with no awareness of what was happening, just ran in to save people. 5 of the 7 coaches that my daughters had were law enforcement. They did this off duty. I know their values. I know who they are as people. And so support to our law enforcement community is also a priority.
Awesome.
Final question. What's your favorite ride at the park?
Okay, true story. True story. And I will find this picture and I will put it in the chat. I have a client, All Right Painting. They're here in Santa Clarita. And we painted the Goliath. So somebody had a great idea that on the 10-year anniversary of painting it, the team should ride it. And I was like, I don't know. I'm 50. I should not be riding this ride. And I reluctantly rode it with my daughter, who at the time was 14, and I immediately had to leave the park. So is it my favorite ride? Yes, because All Right Painting it, but no, because I got sick like instantly. The party was over for me. And I have the picture. I had a team member that literally took the picture of me. I was going up like, yay, like really, why was I doing that? And then they have a picture of me going down, just so we laugh about that. But it's my favorite ride because of my client that painted it, who is also one of the contractors for the Golden Gate Bridge, right? Procurement money, you get to put your bid into who gets to paint a portion of the bridge. So they get to paint part of the Golden State Bridge, and they painted Goliath. So Goliath would be the ride. I'm gonna send you that picture.
Please do. Please do.
And his name was Davey,
I'm gonna
right?
send it. I'm gonna send it to you. And it was the last time I rode it, the last time I ride any other ride ever. And truly, like I had a moment where you have that good angel here and you have the bad angel, and the angel here is like, do it, be a team member, and this angel's like, you're 50, what are you doing? Don't get on that ride. And that was 2 years ago. So
and you should have listened to this angel on
I
that
should have
side.
listened to this one, like crazy. So yeah,
That's
that was the ride.
awesome.
Yeah,
Selena, you are
I'm gonna
amazing.
send it to you.
I always love having you on, and always
Thank you.
welcome to come back to any show
Thank you
that
so
I'm
much.
on, any podcast. Selena also has a podcast right up in the Santa
Yes,
Clarita. So you
yes,
guys, like, please put that in the chat so you guys can
I
follow
will.
her
Yes,
and follow her on her social media during this time
Facebook,
when she's,
Instagram.
yeah, all her.
I'm on Twitter now. My kids are trying to convince me to do TikTok. It's crazy. Yeah. So you'll
But
see me doing this.
most importantly, though, you really want to follow her for her advice for HR, because consulting and understanding your rights as an employer, because your employees' rights trump yours. And
They do.
I have a best friend that is a HR director for in the corporate world, and she always has told me over and over again, paperwork trumps everything. Make sure
The proof
you
is
have,
in your
well,
processes. I say that.
right.
I mean, remember the judge, right? He's going to ask for the handbook. He's going to ask for and that's where the vulnerability and you start to lose all blood in your face because you don't have it.
Right. So get your
Yeah.
paperwork together, guys. You might want to reach out. It might be worth the investment so that she can actually consult, especially during this time, because there is so much
Yes.
stuff going on. And your employees are going through a lot,
Yes.
COVID and trying to get to work on $10 a gallon of gas and being forced to
Ridiculous.
come off a remote doing $10 a month, $10 a gallon of gas.
Terrible.
And all of those things are affecting, if they're affecting you, they're definitely affecting your employees. So you want to
Yes.
know what your rights are as an employer, and how you can protect yourself as well. And I'm making an online introduction. Selena, meet Richard Palais. He is the
Oh,
VEVP for NAP.
Kumasa Kanakuya. Nice to meet you.
If only I knew what you just said.
How are you, Mike? Kuya is a male connotation. Kumasa Kana is hello, how are you? Yes.
I
And your
must learn that.
response,
I just
your
started here 6
response,
months ago. Uh-huh.
sure, your response is mabute, which is I'm fine.
Got it.
There you
There
go.
you go.
My
My
what?
boot.
Almost
Mabute.
sounds African. You all get that feeling? It sounds African. Mapute.
My
I want to
boot.
go to Africa
Mabute.
and
There's a
say
lot
that.
of
And have them
Spanish
say, what are you talking
derivatives.
about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why my name is Selena. There's a lot of Spanish derivatives in Tagalog. So if you have the
Okay.
ear for
Excellent.
Spanish, you'll know.
So
Okay.
I'm
Thank
gonna
you, everyone.
exchange your contact information with both, so maybe she will be
Please.
beneficial to your network of individuals at your organization. Selena, you've been awesome. The last few
Mhm.
Thank you,
minutes, I
everybody.
am. If Edwin, if you're Erwin, if you would like to talk about what you're doing for Juneteenth, and then we're gonna close out with
I'll
Dr.
put some
Mays.
stuff in the chat right now.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, I enjoyed this talk today. I've gone through a lot of these our issues. This weekend, Sunday, we're in a collaboration with Community Bill, located in Lamert Park, and together we've created an all-day Juneteenth event that's free. It starts with food from Chef Maryland. It'll be barbecue and vegan and vegetarian food. And there will be performances starting at 1 o'clock and they'll go till 5. And we've got Lula's dance group is performing and her youth group. Dwight Tribble from Lamert is singing, and Fernando Pullum's band is playing. We also have a poet and we have a speaker who's an expert on diversity and inclusion. And we have a poet. And this is a celebration of Juneteenth, but it's also of collaboration between different groups who don't usually together. We usually produce things independently. This time we're working with a team. And we invite everybody to come out. You just have to register on Eventbrite. There's no charge. And come and see. We've already got about 300 people coming, and it's growing. And so usually to see any of these groups, you're going to go somewhere and pay a lot. I know usually to see us, you have to go somewhere and pay to see us. So I think it's going to be a good community event. And we have an outdoor stage now, and we do outdoor seating. And so we don't have the COVID concerns. We have more space between people. And so it's safer. That's why we started doing this. And we're right there on Crenshaw and Coliseum. We're across the street from the Sentinel. And we are between Wiener Schnitzel and CVS, if you don't really know that area. And I urge everybody to come, tell your friends, bring their kids if you want to bring your kids, and come and have a good experience. And what Lula's doing is how this came about is in honor of Juneteenth, we went back to William Grant Still, who was a Black composer, and he composed in the late 1800s, I don't have the exact year in my fingertips, a symphony that I think is called Pages from Negro History. And it's classical music. But Fernando's jazz band is playing it, and they sound good. They sound real good. And then we have this poetry from Gwendolyn Brooks that is being read by a very accomplished actor. And so all of it put together is going to be a good show that kind of shows our ingenuity as a people and where we've come and where we're going and what our abilities are. And I think what's interesting about this is, we own the property that we're doing this on. We've been around for 42 years, and we're working with other people who are staples in the community who've been around a long time. Fernando has, Dwight has, and others. And so, and Community Build is an anchor in Leimert. So all of us have come together to create this free event. And it's going to be good. You should come and see it. And just go to Eventbrite and register. That's all you have to do.
Thank you, Erwin. We appreciate that. And Lula Washington is a legacy business in Los Angeles, so let's support. And they have some amazing dancers and they amazing programs and shows. So definitely let's support them so that they can continue on for another 40 years in the community. So thank you guys so much. And we have Dr. May. She's going to give us our update because I know some folks think that the pandemic is over or COVID is over. It's not. But she will update us.
And now we got monkeypox coming.
Let me tell you, it's been busy, family. So I'm happy to be able to get back and do this more consistently. I'm going to be short today because what I want everyone to think about is whether or not you or someone that you know has gotten their boosters. We don't have people doing their boosters. People think they were vaccinated and that was good enough, but you need to have your boosters. And also now is the time to start the conversations about, we now have boosters for children. People seem to have forgotten that the kids' immunity system will wane as well. So boosters are now okay for ages 5 to 17. So again, as I say, when people want to come up and hug you and come in your house and all of that, it's no longer, are you vaccinated? It's like, when were you vaccinated and did you have your boosters? The two ends of where we get worried about are if you want to see me run in another direction, send me a little kid under 5. I go around the other side of the table, excuse myself to go to the bathroom, any of this because they are not vaccinated. And so I'm just telling y'all the truth. If your little kids come to me, I run. And I am still a COVID virgin. That is something I brag about. There are people who I've had COVID and they tell stories. I say, oh no, I'm still a virgin. So I'm very happy about that. And I'm trying to urge everybody to be COVID virgins because I think it's very important to your health because of all the things that we don't know yet about what long-term COVID's going to be. So I want you all to start asking and pushing about getting the boosters. And when you can sign up for children under 5, please do not be I'm gonna wait and see what happens to everybody else's kid, because it's your kid that's gonna get sick. Everybody else's kid will get vaccinated and maybe mild. I'm working on a paper right now that is showing the deaths of Black kids from COVID, because I think nobody thinks that they die. And I thought it was time to be a little grim and to share that information. So we, are working on that information. I'm going to, when I come back next, start talking to you about COVID and mental health, because there's funds coming down. Some of them will be in terms of violence. Some of them will be in terms of mental health in general. And I think as a community, we have to get very wise about accessing those funds to be able to take care of the things that are happening in our community around our mental health. Now, nobody wants to talk about it, but I'm going to just tell you what it looks like when people start acting all crazy and stuff in the household, and you just saying they're crazy as a lay word, but no, they're crazy. And I want you to start dealing with that so that they don't end up being a statistic when the police show up. So I wasn't on a happy note today, but a very realistic note today, Crystal. So, and Erwin, I'm gonna tell you, if I come out there, I'm gonna be the one in a mask. I don't care we outside. This is one of the most easily transmittable viruses, even if you're outside, if you're too close together. And I know you all are distancing, but it's like, don't shame anybody like me that wears a mask.
Well, you won't be shamed because we urge everybody to keep their masks on anyway.
Good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Some of us have experienced COVID, and we don't want anybody else to experience.
Yep. Thank you. I love it. Okay, Crystal, I'm good for today.
Thank you, Dr. Mays. Yes, I unfortunately cannot say I'm a COVID virgin. I wanted to say that. I wanted to be able to go through this, but my brother-in-law was exposed, so he exposed the rest of us. But I did, I just had sniffles. But I did talk to a client the other day that has full-on congestion and everything. So that tells me, I don't know if she didn't get boosted, she didn't get vaxxed, but that told me to put my K95 back on. That's what that told me. So, and I'm still very leery of going out and events. People are always asking. I'm still not feeling it yet. So
Hey, Crystal.
Yes.
Dr.
Crystal.
Yes. Roger.
Yeah. I tested positive on Monday.
Oh
wow.
Yeah.
So there you go, guys.
Even Danger Man.
Even Danger Man. He's the superhero of the community.
Even a superhero can get that.
Yeah, I'm telling you.
Turn the video off. We're not even sure.
But I got that. That medication that Dr. Fauci. Yeah.
Paxlovid.
Yeah, I got that, and so I just got sniffles and a cough, and so yeah, but I'm all boarded in.
Okay. Well,
thank you for sharing that. That's right. And that you got the medication and what difference the medication made. So, Danger Man, thank you for sharing that.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that superhero mask didn't count. You still got to wear the other mask.
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
It was those under 5-year-old children that he encountered, Dr. Mays.
No, it was actually at a what do you call it, one of those LTB events. Yeah, So I said, "Oh man." Great.
Yeah. All right. That somebody was inviting me to an event on Friday. Not going.
Well, thank you
going.
again, Crystal, for having me and allowing me to spend some time with you guys. As you can see, there's my regret picture. That's me on Goliath, Greg. Not good.
Not good. So
not good. So thank you, everybody, so much.
Selina, you've been awesome. Richard, I hope you got our information out of the chat, because that's what you guys can make a connection. Thank you guys all. Be safe this weekend. Next week, our guest is going to be Beverly Kudal. She was on last week talking about procurement and supply. She had so much amazing information, so she's going to get to have the whole platform tomorrow, next Thursday. So please come back out. Have a great weekend this weekend celebrating Black freedom and emancipation. But be safe. Take heed to what Dr. May says. Cover up. Wear your mask. Even if you're around people that you know, don't get so familiar and let the huggings go on and you don't have your face mask on, because you will be meeting and seeing people. So support. So share this video on your social media. It is currently over at the community briefing page, as well as Recycling Black Dollars page. So share it out. That was great information that Selina shared with us today, Dr. Mays, Edwin. So please share it so that we can get as many views and we can get more people coming in every week. We want to thank all of our sponsors and thank the team, the community briefing team, for excellent work. And we will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend. Mask up.
That's good.
Take care,
Happy Father's
everybody.
Day, fathers.
All right. Thank
Happy
you,
Father's
Selena.
Day.
Oh, and happy Father's Day to all the dads.
Yes.
Sorry about that,
Yes.
guys.
And the papas.
The papas, the uncles, the nephews,
Yeah.
everybody that's
Yes.
papa related.
Awesome.
All the men. Thank
all
you.
the men, all the men.
Okay.
Be safe,
Bye.
guys. Have a great weekend. Bye-bye.
Bye all.
Bye.